With miles of waterways winding around islands of orchards and trout farms, the Sacramento San Joaquin Delta is a crucial piece of California's water system. It is a unique landscape among California's diverse ecosystems, a place that peacefully supports farmers and wildlife while being the epicenter of fierce political debates over how California's precious water is managed for the support of agriculture and to maintain the remaining populations of salmon and other species. The Delta is located in the heart of California. With 500,000 people calling it home, it stands at 738,000 acres across 5 counties. The agricultural crops are valued at around $650 million. Farmland is flooded in the fall to support migrating birds that depend on the delta. Over the years, the total amount of water available has declined, while the allocation of water to protect fish and the delta in San Francisco Bay habitat has remained the same. Agricultural water shortage has grown dangerously concerning. With many people depending on the delta, how does this affect them?
Well, I'd like to start with how the delta was formed, which took place approximately 8,000 to 10,000 years ago. And it was formed as the waters of the Central Valley began to recede a little bit, and this produced grounds for marsh plants to start to take hold, which they did. And then this eventually led to this vast system of small, shallow canals, hundreds of canals, that served as the basis for a vast freshwater fall. For thousands of years, these plants grew and decayed, and that process produced some very rich peat soils in the delta.
The delta allows for the formation of marshlands, which are saturated with shallow waters. These are moist soils that are sustained by fresh water stream flow.
It's an extremely interesting place, an unusual part of California's unusual geography. We have lots of different ecosystems, but this one is unusual. It's an inland delta, one of the few inland deltas in the whole world, and its ecology is unusual because of that.
It's like a different world, really, than a lot of parts of California and a lot of parts of the country in general, because you look down and you see fields and fields everywhere. You see on one side there's the fields, on the other side you see the river. It's a beautiful drive.
So as a hub for California's water supply, the water that flows into the delta flows through the delta from the Sacramento River in the north, from the San Joaquin River in the south, from the American River in the east, and flows down to the south of the delta where it's pumped into aqueducts. And those aqueducts carry the water to the agriculture in the San Joaquin Valley. California produces more than half of the nation's fruits and nuts, and a large fraction of the vegetables for the nation. A lot of that's in the San Joaquin Valley. So the delta serves so much of the water needs of our agricultural and urban economies in the state.
So my name is Eduardo Gamboa. I'm the manager here on all farms. I would say the two main ones that we do is figs during the summer. Although we have stone fruit too. During the springtime we have green garlic, which basically gets shipped to the East Coast too. There's a big market there.
It's very rich soil. It's an alluvial soil. It was brought down here by the flooding. So we pump it out of this canal, and this is a big pump here. It's not on right now, but it goes to a much further distant part of the farm. It's about a half a mile away. So the water, we pump the water, our pump pumps the water out of the canal. It pumps it into pipelines which form a network under the orchard, and that network of 4-inch lines, 6-inch lines, 3-inch, 2-inch lines takes the water to every orchard, every different part of my whole farm.
The Delta right now, in terms of the people who live there, some do because it's historic. Their families have lived there a long time and they're involved in agriculture. There are people who farmed there for, since the 1850s. So there are people who have historic reasons to be there.
My name is Tom Zuckerman. I'm 80 years old. I've lived here all my life and worked, and we're one of the original farmers in the Delta when it was being reclaimed, which means when they were building levees and reclaiming the land for agriculture. And my family's been farming in the Delta ever since. The Delta, its agriculture, its environment, and its recreation.
It's not so much a commuting area. There's also people, there was a period starting really with the Prohibition in the United States, where people would go up the Delta to escape. And there was a time when there were a lot of hotels and bars that would serve liquor up there. So people would go there on a weekend to get away from it all. And there's still some get away from it all places, a sense of escape.
But it was also a place of Chinese immigrants, Japanese immigrants, some Filipino.
There's a certain kind of anti-metropolitan lifestyle that's cultivated in the Delta.
Then you also come across these communities that are gems. They're very small, they're little towns, but there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of interesting people that live there. There's a lot of people who have driven on these roads and just said, this is where I want to live.
Mi nombre es Leticia Zaragoza. Este es el Rancho Zaragoza en Brentwood, California. Tenemos 20 años aquí en esta huerta. Es una huerta de las más pequeñas que puedes encontrar aquí en Brentwood. En el tiempo que ya termina la fruta, es cuando dejan como que todo el delta vuelva a recuperarse. Entonces ellos nos dicen, de tal día a tal día va a haber agua y ya no va a haber de noche, nada más durante el día tanto tiempo. Y sí te dicen más o menos que ahorita ya cerramos, pude haber tenido más agua para mañana, para otras áreas que necesitaba, pero también ellos cierran ciertos canales porque con el sol le da mucha algae al agua.
There's a lot of water use in the Delta because it's got great irrigation systems that help farmers become successful growers out there. They go to serve agriculture in the San Joaquin Valley, as well as some goes over the hill to the San Joaquin County Water District, as well as all the way south to the Metropolitan Water District, which then distributed it in its service area, which extends all the way to San Diego. I mean, overall, I think it's 26 million people in California who get a part of their water supply in the Delta.
No, el consumo del agua es nada más para mi huerta. Nosotros aquí vivimos un poquito como todavía no entra el sistema de drenaje y de agua para esta área.
Para uso personal.
Para nuestro uso personal, nosotros tenemos nuestro pozo, nuestro well, un pozo con sus tanques para el agua. Gracias que no tenemos ese problema de la sequía por la compañía de aquí de agricultura.
¿Cómo se llama la compañía?
ECCID Water District. Es para pura agricultura. Brentwood es un pueblo con mucha historia de agricultura. En años de los 80, 70, esto era un monstruo en la agricultura.
Parts of the Delta are now largely freshwater and other parts are still fluctuating. And we need those freshwater ecosystems in part because some of the communities around the Delta, plus the farmers, depend on taking fresh water out. for their water supplies. There's also recreation that depends on freshwater fisheries.
Well, when you're talking about water availability, this will be the last place in California that runs out of water. Because both the state and the federal water projects take water from the Delta down closer to Tracy, they have to keep the water in the Delta fresh. Otherwise, they'll be exporting salt water, which they don't want.
My role in leading the science program is to provide the best possible unbiased science to inform management decisions. And so what we try to do as a science program is to evaluate the trade-offs that you might see with different strategies for management. So some of those strategies might involve things like the single tunnel conveyance, which has been proposed recently by the Department of Water Resources.
The big battle in this area is over the desire of the people who get water south of here to build either a peripheral canal or tunnels to take water directly from the tributaries, mainly the Sacramento and McCollum rivers, without allowing the water to pass through the Delta. And we've had a very, very long warfare over that. It goes back early in my career. And so far, we've been able to prevail in those battles. But as long as everybody has a common interest in preserving water in the Delta, this is going to be a real good place for not just farming, but for fishery and for recreation and the other many uses that people make of the Delta.
And our job then is to look at what the trade-offs will be in terms of water usage within the Delta, what will be the impacts on in-Delta ecosystems, and then what will be the potential benefits for water supply in Southern California. And we provide that information to policymakers to hopefully inform their decision making.
The question is, can the Delta continue to provide all of these different needs that the state depends on from the Delta? Can we still have it as a hub for our water supply, moving water from the Sacramento River in the north to the canals that take it to the San Joaquin Valley in Southern California? Can we still have a recreational ecosystem? Can we have an economy in the state? Can we have a healthy biodiversity and ecosystem in the Delta? Can we continue to provide affordable housing in the Delta? Can we maintain the levees in the Delta? Well, California is a wealthy state, and we can do it if we decide it's a priority.
The Delta is the single most important focal point of a region in California where that comes to a head. And the reality of the Delta is that it's vulnerable. It's very, very vulnerable. It's teetering on the brink of collapse. It sounds very dramatic, but we are one serious ecological event, such as a long, strong atmospheric river, an earthquake, a dam failure, away from one or more of these islands failing. And it's conceivable that multiple islands could fail at the same time, which could potentially foul our irrigation network and knock out our entire agricultural sector and water distribution to Los Angeles, all in the span of under a month for an unknown amount of time. And if we're comparing it to other disasters in America's history, such as Katrina, it could potentially be an order of magnitude larger than that.
The Delta is a fascinating biodiverse body of water. The complex formation of it makes a unique landscape and a main source of water distribution to Southern California. Agriculture, economy, and the ecosystem are often benefited from the enriched body of water that flows deep into the San Francisco Bay Area. As it preserves, the Delta is a vast natural landscape in the heart of California.